Welcome to Daily Dose Radio, a 5-minute devotional podcast studying the Psalms verse by verse. Broadcast from the ever-beautiful Sharonville, Ohio, on the sunny side of Cincinnati. Hey there, friends. Welcome back to Daily Dose Radio, your roadside Bible bistro on the information superhighway, where Jesus is Lord and the Bible is our textbook. It's also our dessert. It's our main course. It's everything. We're looking today at Psalm 147, verses 9 and 10. That's our text. If you have your Bible and you want to open up there with us, I'm reading from my translation today, verses 9 and 10. Now remember, we're doing 147 in two parts, so we're only going to get to verse 10 today. Next week we'll do 11 through 20. And today we're going to kind of leave us at a cliffhanger, and we'll talk about that as we get to the end of the program today. So next week, the second half of 147, so just get ready for that if you want to read ahead. Let me read for you verses 9 and 10. He is the one who gives food to the cattle, to the fledgling ravens which cry out. He does not delight in the strength of the horse, nor does he take pleasure in the legs of a man. He's the one who gives food to the cattle. Now, we've seen that before in Psalms previous to this, how God's intent is to take care of all of his creatures. This psalm specifically targets the redeemed. So remember, we began in verse 1, it's good to sing to our God because it's pleasant, praise is beautiful, and that's our claim. Praise is beautiful, and so the rest of this psalm up to this point has been the because. The reason why praise is beautiful is that he heals the brokenhearted and binds up their wounds, and he declares the numbers of the stars. He's great in power and in mercy. He hears the afflicted, and they sing to him. And then we have his provision in verse 8. He covers the heavens with clouds, sends rain, and grass grows. Now we follow that by saying he gives food to the cattle. So what is it that the cattle eat? And we're talking about all the ruminators here, the sheep, the goats, the cattle, the cows, the oxen. What do they eat? They eat grass. If the cattle are eating grass, and it's God that causes the grass to grow, and the grass grows because he sends rain on the earth, and the rain comes on the earth because he covers the heavens with clouds, you see, then the cattle eating is because of the work of God up to that point. So everything builds, you see, on itself here. God's provision is what's being declared. And are we really talking about cattle here? And are we really talking about ravens here? Or are we talking about something else? The raven is an unclean bird, and yet God takes care of him. So perhaps we're talking about God's people when we're speaking of cattle, and perhaps we're talking about all the nations when we're speaking about the ravens. So it's God who not only takes care of the created order, but he also takes care of his people and all the rest of the nations. So his hand is involved in the care and administration of the food for all of those groups. Then we have in verse 10, he does not delight in the strength of the horse. Well, why not? Well, because people trust in the strength of the horse, remember? Remember, we're not to trust in the strength of the horse, but we're to trust in the Lord. So the Lord does not delight in the strength of the horse, nor does he take pleasure in the legs of a man. You see, there again, there's that strength of the person and the strength of the horse. If we trusted in those two things, which so many of us do, then we would be off the mark, because that's not exactly what we're to trust in. And the Lord doesn't delight in the strength of the horse. He doesn't depend upon it. And he doesn't depend upon the strength of the legs of a man, because if a man is lame in his legs, the Lord can heal him and raise him up. So he doesn't delight in the strength of a man's legs. What does he delight in? I can't tell you, because that's next week. That's verse 11. But if you want to go ahead and read it, go ahead and read it, because it's wonderful. Look at verse 11, and you'll see the answer to this question, the question that's implied, not written. What is it that he delights in? That's kind of the cliffhanger for today, isn't it? Well, we'll find out next week. So join me then as we look at the remainder of Psalm 147 on Daily Dose Radio. Thanks for listening to Daily Dose Radio. I'm David Smith. The music today has been performed by the Bluegrass Experiment. Thanks again for listening. I'll see you next time on Daily Dose Radio.